Hello, and welcome to the first video in a series where we're creating a custom budget app in Salesforce. This was originally presented at my Salesforce Saturday group meeting for the St. Louis Salesforce users group. We did a few things in there that we're going to end up splitting into a few videos here. So in this first video, we're going to be creating the schema and the fields for the budget app. And then in further videos, we're going to go over how to create page layouts for it, how to create custom object tabs, and also how to basically design our app, create some reports and dashboards, do some automation. We're going to really run the full gambit here with out-of-the-box declarative tooling. All right, so the first thing you're going to want to do is go to developer.salesforce.com and click sign up. You'll want to enter your information in here and pick a unique username. Click sign me up, and in a few minutes it should spin up a sandbox for you, or not a sandbox necessarily, it's a Salesforce developer org, but it's like a sandbox. It's like a place where you can learn and play in, and eventually you'll get this email where you verify your account, and then after you verified and created your initial password, you'll get into your Salesforce developer environment, and it should put you right into the setup window. All right, so the first thing we're going to want to do is go to the schema builder over in the quick find, start typing schema, click on schema builder. If you see all the standard objects, go ahead and click clear all to clear all those away, because we're going to use entirely custom objects. So the first thing you'll do is go over to elements, and then we're going to create a single object first, and that's going to be called budget. We're going to allow reports for this custom object and keep the record name as text and click save. And then on this budget object, we're going to create a single field that's currency. It's going to be called total available. And this field is going to be something that you'll edit every single time you start making more and more money. So if you get a promotion and a raise, you'll want to edit this field to reflect what your current salary is. Or maybe you start a side hustle and you'll be making some extra money there. You may want to just estimate what that is to try and figure out how much am I making. All right, so we've got our budget custom object and our custom field inside of that budget object for total available. Now we're going to create another object, and it's going to be called category. And we're going to do the same thing for this. We're going to allow reports, leave it as text, and save. All right, so on this custom object, we're going to create a couple fields. The first one's going to be another currency field, and it's going to be called default budget. It's going to have a length of 16 and decimal places 2. We're typically not going to hit all 16 values there for really anything that we do in here, but it's good to just use that full length. That way you have it. So the next thing we're going to be doing is creating a master detail relationship from category to budget. And we're just going to call this budget. Oh, and it is up here in budget. We're going to keep the child and relationship name and the related list label as is and save. All right, and that's going to give us the ability to create a roll-up summary over here, so you'll see what I'm talking about. So yeah, that roll-up summary field is going to go on the budget object, so click roll-up summary, drag it over there, and we're going to call this field total budgeted. And the object we're going to summarize is categories. It's going to be sum of default budget. So essentially, you have the total budgeted being the sum of all of your categories' default budgets. So you can see that in your single budget record. And keep in mind that this custom object is only going to have a single object record. You can have other budgets for other things. Maybe you want to have a budget for your kids, have a budget for your spouse. You can keep your own budgets, or you can decide to just put all of your budget categories into a single budget record. Okay, so now we're going to create another field on budget. It's a formula field this time, and it's going to be called budget available. It's going to return a currency. The decimal places will be 2. And then this is going to be a very basic formula, just subtracting the total budgeted from the total available. So you'll say total available minus total budgeted. And keep everything else as is and save. So that way, we see what our default budget is for each category. It rolls up to that total budgeted, and then we subtract those to get our budget available. We subtract it from the total available to get our budget available. And that helps us keep track of, as we're creating category amounts for default budget, we know how much is left in our main budget. Okay, so now we're going to go ahead and create some more custom objects that are going to be our actual data. It's going to be our month records. So this first one's going to be called budget month. And it's going to have text as well. It'll allow reports. Save. Zoom out just a little bit so we can see the schema better. So we have budget month, and we're going to create a couple fields on here. First one is going to be date, and it is going to be called first day of month. And save. And the reason we're using a single date field here is so that we can use date filters in our reporting. It'll make a little more sense in the videos to come. The next field we're going to create is a currency on budget month, and that's going to be called the total monthly budget. The length will be 16, decimal places 2, and save. All right, so now that we got our budget month object, we're going to create another custom object, and that's going to be called the category month. We're going to keep everything as is, allow reports, and save. And on the category month, we're going to be creating quite a few fields. First, let's create a lookup, and that will look up to category. And the reason we're using a lookup field here and not a master detail is so that, let's say we decide to delete a category record, then it won't delete any of our historical data in category month. All right, so the next field we're creating is a currency field, and that's going to be called the budgeted amount. Length is 16, decimal place is 2, and save. And this is going to be a discrete field because you want the ability to change your budgeted amounts from month to month based for each category. And we'll use automation later in the next videos to automatically set these when creating our category months. The next field we're going to be creating is a master detail on category month, and that's going to look up to the budget month. Keep everything as is and save. And then the last field we're going to be creating on category month is going to be a formula field, but we're going to want to go into the object manager to create this, and you'll see why in a second. So we'll go to fields and relationships, click new, do a formula type, next. We'll call this first day of month, and it'll return a date field. And we'll click on the advanced formula editor. It's better to use that. And the reason I went into the object manager to do this is because you have this insert field capability. You don't have that over in the schema builder. And it's going to be looking up to the budget month and just grabbing that first day of month, because we don't want to have to discretely set first day of month on our category month records. We just want to look up to what the parent budget month is. Click next, next, and save. All right, and then we're done with the object manager for now, so we'll go ahead and close that tab and head back into our schema builder. Now the next object we're going to create is called expense. This one does start with a val. And for this one, I'm going to use, instead of expense name, I'm going to use expense number. And I'm going to auto number it and just use some regular zeros. I'm not going to lead it with anything necessarily here like E. I'm just going to have it be an expense number. And we're going to start with our number 1. All right, and we'll allow reports and save. And you'll see why I decided to change that to an auto number. It's more of just a preference thing, I suppose, but the main reason is that I wanted the ability to put more characters in my description. All right, so let's create the fields for our expense. So we want to have a lookup on expense going to category. And again, the reason I'm using lookup instead of master detail is so that I don't delete any of my records whenever I delete a category. Now let's create some more fields here. These are sort of going to be the basic fields for an expense, so we're just going to call this expense date. Hit save. Then we're going to create a currency field called amount. It's going to have that same length of 16, decimal places 2. And I'll create then this one I'm going to create a master detail from expense up to category month. And the reason I'm using master detail there is because those are going to relate to the actual month records. It's not a big deal if I say I delete a category month, then it will delete all the expenses, but that's expected because those are data for the month. And save. All right, so now your schema should look a little bit like this. You have lookup relationships going from category month and expense into category, and then you have this sort of master detail hierarchy of expense at the bottom, category month, and budget month. And now that we have, one more field for expense, and I want to make that a text. I'm going to call this description. And I'm going to make this that full 255 values and save. And so the reason that I decided to use a text field for my description rather than just the name of the record is so that I can have a lot more characters to use. So now we're going to go back to the category month object, and we're going to create a roll-up summary. And it is going to be called spent amount. And because we have that master detail, we can summarize our expense records. And it's going to be a sum of amount. So this field is going to calculate the amounts of all the expenses related to that category month. All right, finally, we're going to return to the budget month object, and we're going to create 2 fields. They're both going to be roll-up summaries. One's going to be called total budgeted, and that's going to summarize our category months with a sum of budgeted amount. And then another roll-up summary field here, and that is going to be called the total spent. We're going to summarize category months with a sum of, you guessed it, spent amount. Okay, so now that we have our month records here, our month objects, we're going to create one more custom object, and it is going to be called expense template. Now this expense template object is going to be used for creating expenses automatically. And the reason I call it an expense template and not a known expense is because I like creating my objects with names that I kind of know what they're doing in terms of the technical features, but I will make the related list label for this known expenses, which you'll see here in a second. So we'll create some fields on here. Let's create currency. It's going to be the amount. Length is 16 and 2, and save. And the next field we're going to create is a number field. And this number field is going to be called day of month. And it's only going to have a length of 2 because we can't have a month day that is greater than 31. And in our case, we're not going to make any that are greater than 28. The next field we're going to create is the lookup from expense template to category. And then for here, like I said, I was going to do a different related list label. Sorry, not the child relationship name, but different related list label, and call that known expenses. That way in the UI, it looks like a known expense. But for us, we're going to call it expense template because we know that we're going to be using this as a template for creating our expenses automatically. All right, and then the last field we're going to be creating on our expense template is a formula. It's going to be called, type customer a lot, I suppose. Current month expense date. It's going to have a return type of date. And it's basically going to grab the day of the current month that this expense falls on. So I'm going to grab some functions here first from the function picker. I'm going to grab day. And I'll grab today and day of month. All right, I'm going to copy today, and then I'm going to put it in here, and I'm going to take today minus the day of today plus 1. And this first part of the formula, it returns the first day of the month. So no matter what day it is, it's currently the month of October, this is always going to return October 1st. All right. Now, then I want to basically add, take this today out, and I've got day of month minus 1. But the reason I'm subtracting 1 from that is I already have, let's say it's for October, you have it's 10-1 for the first day of the month. Then you're adding the day of month, but you're subtracting 1 because you're already on 1. So essentially, this formula is just giving you that exact date that the day of month falls on for the current month. And we're going to be using this later on in our automation. Hit save. All right, so that completes the schema design. I hope you enjoyed this video. In the next video, we're going to show you how to create page layouts and custom object tabs, and then we're going to create our budget lightning app. Thanks, and see you soon.